Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the reconvened Dorset Council Northern Area Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Sherry Jesperson, Chair of this committee. The meeting is being conducted under the regulations for remote meetings. It's being live streamed and a recording will be published on the Dorset Council website in due course. May I remind everyone to mute your microphones, and please remember to give your names when you speak unless I have introduced you. May I first introduce the Dorset Council officers who are present in this meeting. We have Robert Lennis, Planning Area Lead, Major Projects, Hannah Smith, Planning Area Manager, Charlotte Haynes, Planning Officer, Steve Savage, Transport Development Liaison Manager, Phil Crowther, Senior Solicitor, Kate Critchell, Democratic Services Officer, Fiona King, Democratic Services Officer. Have I omitted anybody? No, I think that's the full gamut for this afternoon. We will now take an alphabetical roll call of the members present. As this morning, when I call your name, unmute your microphone, tell me you're present, and then mute again. Thank you very much then. So, Councillor John Andrews.
Hello, Councillor John Andrews, Sherborne East, present.
Thank you. Councillor Tim Cook.
Councillor Tim Cook, co-member Shaftesbury, present.
Thank you. Councillor Les Fry.
Good afternoon, everybody. Councillor Les Fry from Dorchester West here. Thank
you. Councillor Matt Hall.
Councillor Matt Hall, Sherborne West, present.
Councillor Carol Jones. Councillor Carol Jones.
Thank you.
Just coming. I'll come back to Councillor Jones when she's unmuted. Councillor Robin Legg. Whoever's unwrapping their lunch with their microphone, could you mute your microphone? Councillor Mary Penfold. Councillor Penfold. Councillor Bill Pipe.
Here, miss.
Thank you. Councillor Val Pothecary.
Councillor Val Pothecary, Gillingham Ward, present.
Councillor Belinda Rideout.
Councillor Belinda Rideout, Gillingham Ward.
Thank you. Councillor David Taylor.
Yeah, good afternoon, Councillor David Taylor from Charmington St Mary Ward, present.
Councillor Carol Jones, are you there now?
Yes, present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Robin Legg, are you there now? No, okay, that's no problem. We have apologies then from Councillor Robin Legg, who had hoped to join us this afternoon, and Councillor Mary Penfold. I can see you're present. Thank you.
Present Chairman, Yetminster Ward. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Good. Well, now we're all present and correct. Briefly, and do bear with me because you heard this morning, but I need to run through the procedures again for anyone who has joined the meeting just for this afternoon. So for each application, I will invite the case officer to present their report. Members of the public have been invited to submit written representations to a maximum of 450 words. These submissions will be read to the committee by a council officer who's not directly involved in that planning application. We have a bit of background noise. Is somebody not muted? Okay. Representations will be taken in the following order. Members of the public opposing the application, members of the public supporting, the applicant or agent, the town or parish council, and finally the ward member who may address the meeting directly for a maximum of 3 minutes. Following these representations, I will invite officers to clarify any points raised. Then the committee will deliberate and come to a view, at the end of which I will take a vote by roll call. As I call your names, please say whether you are for, against, or abstain. Thank you. Now we have 3 very important items remaining on our agenda for this afternoon. So we will move on to agenda item 7B. This is a replacement dwelling at Bleat Farm, Gillingham. And I'm going to invite Planning Officer Charlotte Haynes to present her report. Charlotte.
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Yes. Charlotte is just getting her slides up
now,
and will be coming shortly.
There we go.
Yes.
Can you see my slide?
Not quite yet, but we will soon.
Excellent.
Sorry, I don't have. I saw it and then it disappeared. I'm afraid, Charlotte. Could you do it again for me, please?
It's all right, Charlotte. Bear with us. We're all on a learning curve. Yeah, don't worry. We'll get there.
Have we got it in front of us now?
Now we have it. Well done. Thank you. Yes.
Good.
And if we could have Charlotte up on the screen as well as her slides.
One moment, Chairman.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Lovely. Charlotte, the floor is yours.
Right. Okay, thank you, Chairman. The application before us today is for the erection of a replacement dwelling at Bleat Farm. The application follows a previously refused proposal for a replacement dwelling, which was also dismissed at appeal. The current proposal has been revised to address the reasons for refusal of the previous scheme. Now going to there we are. The site is situated in an isolated location, and if you just bear with me one moment, I'm going to show it. As you can see, it's clearly identified by the yellow marker on the screen there, sitting at an elevated position overlooking Stour Valley Way. And across on the opposite side of the valley is the small settlement hamlet of Bugley. And you can also note the stream, the river rather, sorry. Just one moment as I just get the correct pointer so that I can clearly identify through the site.
Sorry, Chair. Is there thunder and lightning in Charlotte's location?
Oh, is there sound issues?
No, it's fine, Charlotte. Just
think so.
There's a little crackle on the line, but I expect it will clear itself.
Okay, excellent. Just one moment. Right. There we go. So this is the site and block plans, which show clearly the site location. There we are. In relation to Bleat Lane, so it's access from Bleat Lane here, and this is obviously the area of landing with the applicant's ownership. Specifically here we have the red line plan. This is the detailed block plan showing the replacement dwelling centrally positioned within the site. And you can see some
Charlotte, that you haven't updated. Oh, you have now. It wasn't the right plan you were talking to. Thank you.
Right. No, I feared that might happen.
It is now.
It's before me now. Right. A little bit of a lag there. Okay.
That's all right.
With that, right.
Yes.
So now you can see what I'm discussing here. We can see the site and the red line. And the landscaping that's indicated here. There is actually a full landscaping plan which isn't as part of this presentation but is shown on the website, which members will have seen, which indicates a full detailed landscaping plan to deal with the north-east corner long term. Currently there is ley landi there, and also to extend landscaping along the northwestern boundary in this space here. Right, I'm going to click now. And doing it before, but it's not now. There we go. Right, this now shows the aerial image of the site. You can see again the yellow marker identifying the existing dwelling on the site there, and we have the field sloping down to the Stour Valley and the River Stour here. This is Nations Road along here. I've also marked out the footpaths, and there's the houses around here forming the small settlement of Bugley. This is the existing site plan, which shows the existing dwelling marked here with an A. There are farm buildings marked here with a B that sit outside of the application site and not part of the proposals. Here we have the as I said at the beginning of the presentation, this follows a previous scheme that was refused and subsequently dismissed at appeal. And here is the previous proposals for that, the floor plans before us, which show that at this time the scheme proposed to have a two-storey element flanking the ridge of the site, with the field sloping down to the valley there. And spanning a width along here, and then the smaller a single-story element set further back in the site. It also incorporated an overhanging open balcony element here. This is the previous proposal now showing the elevations with an outline of the existing dwelling. This was for the previous proposals, again, what was previously proposed and refused. And you can see a contemporary design, split level design with curved roofs, metal roofs. And here is the open overhanging balcony that overhanged into the field to the northwest. See the levels of the existing levels of the site. And the treatment there, and turn to the next elevations. These are the southeast elevation and the northwest elevation, which is the elevation that faces onto Stour Valley, and where you can see on the previous proposals the expanse of the two-storey element and the glazing. Okay, now turning to the current proposals that are being considered at committee today. We have the proposed floor plans, which show that the dwelling, the two-storey element, has now been reduced in width and has also been set back by a depth of 5 meters from the edge of the field, at the red line of the site effectively. And the single-storey element has been increased in width, but again is set back even further into the site by a depth of some 15 meters here. And so there's the upper floor plan showing the single-storey element and the first floor element, first floor part of the two-storey element with a central staircase but between the two levels. So this is the proposed elevations, showing the northeast elevation, and the lower one showing the northwest elevation, which is the elevation facing onto the valley. I've incorporated this elevation, which shows the two-storey element here, and then this outline here marks the single-storey element that's set some 50 meters back behind this planting here. And you will also note from the northeast elevation and the other side elevation that I'll turn to in a moment, that there is the balcony is now set into the site and incorporates a roof overhang that covers the entire depth of the balcony here. And it would also obviously serve as a roof overhang to the lower ground here, where you can see there is some glazing. This will, as you can see from the elevations, cast shade over the glazing at this part, where the majority of the glazing is focused, is over this roof overhang here. Again, this is the other elevations. You will also note the existing outline of the dwelling, as you saw from the previously refused proposed elevations. And there's the southeast elevation, which faces towards the obviously the private garden area to the southeast of the dwelling. This is an illustrative site elevation that was prepared by the agent and submitted, and this really just is provided to show how the northwest elevation rather of the dwelling now proposed would sit in relation to the existing farm buildings on the site. And also they've illustrated some planting, which detail of which is on the full landscaping plan. Turning to the photographs of the site, this is a photograph showing the existing dwelling on the site. And there we are, as you can see here. And then there is a small domestic outbuilding here sitting forward of the farm buildings that's within the garden of the dwelling. And you can just see in the backdrop there the opposite side of the valley. There. This is a photograph of the view of the site from Nations Road, sitting obviously at a lower, within the valley here, so we're at a lower ground level looking up towards the site. Here's the existing dwelling, and here are the farm buildings. And a further photograph, this is further to the east along Nations Road, where you can see at the moment the very mature ley landi that I referred to earlier, and the gable end of the existing dwelling just here, and the farm buildings again. So you can see the field sloping up there. This is a photograph from a field further to the west, an access off of Nations Road, and it's a good photograph because it does show the elevated position of the existing dwelling as it steps down there with the extension part here, really as it perches atop the ridge there and overlooks the valley, and you can see the River Stour here. This is a photograph again showing it's more within the settlement of Bewgley and looking at it in the backdrop, serving the backdrop of these existing dwellings, these dwelling buildings here that front onto Nations Road. And there's a close-up of it, of the same photograph effectively there, showing the existing dwelling. And this is an image, Google Street View image I've got that does show the site across the valley on the opposite side here, and this is at a position along Bewgley Road where it is at a more elevated position, and there's an open view across towards the site, and you can see the arrow marking down to the existing dwelling, and the farm buildings are here, and there's the ley landi here. Okay, so turning to the main planning issues for the consideration of this application. It is considered that the amended design and resiting of the dwelling would result in a dwelling that would result in no significant harm to the landscape, would not be any more visually intrusive in the landscape than the existing dwelling, and on this basis is considered to meet with policy 28 as well as the design policy 24 and the landscape policy 4. And on this basis, the principle of the replacement dwelling as amended and with the landscaping proposals put forward as well is considered to be acceptable. The proposal would not harm the character and appearance of the area as advised there, and there would be no highway safety or amenity impacts, and the biodiversity interests of the site are satisfied. And for this reason, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions contained within section 18 of the report.
Thank you very much indeed.
There we are. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. That was a full and comprehensive report. Steve Savage, do you have highways comments that you would like to make on this report?
We have no objection, Chairman, as it's a like-for-like replacement of a dwelling, so the traffic generation will be comparable.
Right, that's helpful. Thank you very much. We have only the agent's representative here, no speakers from the public. So we have a statement now from the agent, which I think Planning Officer Hannah Smith is going to read. Have I that right, Hannah? You're going to read Mr. Williams' submission?
Sorry, Chair, I just have to get that one. Bear with me 1 minute while I locate it.
That's perfectly all right.
Robert, do you have that to hand?
Yes, I do.
Oh, would you mind reading it out, please?
Perhaps, Robert, you would read it for us if you have it to hand. Thank you very much. Seeing as you did such superb reading this morning, we'd like to have more. Thank you very much.
Flattery will get you everywhere. Sorry, the lighting's changed a bit here. But we have one letter in support. And give me just a second there, just double checking that I didn't have any others. It's from Matt Williams, the agent. And Mr. Williams says, thank you for the opportunity to submit this written statement in support of the application. The main issue, the only issue with this application is whether the proposal addresses specific concerns raised by the inspector who dismissed the previous appeal on grounds of visual impact. On assessment, we commend the case officer's report and recommendation, which provides a very thorough and impartial view of the proposed development in the context of relevant policies and the previous appeal decision. The proposal has been the subject of extensive pre-application advice, which is encouraged by the council, and the scheme design has been defined with some helpful feedback from the case officer on visual impact. Both the inspector and the case officer confirm that a proposed replacement dwelling with a contemporary design on this site complies with policy 28 as a matter of principle. The inspector decided that the previous proposal would be harmful because of the cumulative impact of the size of the replacement dwelling, a 70% increase then. The bulk of development being positioned on the site boundary and across the ridge and the extensive glazing. In response, the size of the proposed dwelling has been significantly reduced to represent a 47% enlargement, therefore within the 50% policy guideline. The bulk of the dwelling has been stepped and is set back 5 to 15 meters from the boundary so that it does not run across the ridge, and the extent of glazing has been reduced. On light pollution, the inspector was concerned about the extent of glazing, but did not dismiss the appeal on the grounds of light pollution from the glazing. Local Plan Policy 25 only relates to light pollution from external artificial lighting. Nevertheless, a combination of curtains, blinds for privacy, and the limited hours when indoor lights are switched on will ensure that there will be no light pollution, and there is very limited activity in this area at nighttime when any lighting may be perceived. On reflection, the topic of reflection, there is some local concern about the visual impact of reflection from windows, although, once again, this was not a specific concern raised by the inspector. In any case, there will not be any impact from window reflection because the windows are set behind a 3-meter covered balcony and will face northwest. In conclusion, the applicants and their architects have fully engaged with the council's planning service to ensure that the proposed replacement dwelling addresses the inspector's concerns and complies with local plan. The appeal was not dismissed on the grounds of light pollution or reflection from windows, and we therefore respectfully ask the committee to agree with your case officer's impartial and professional analysis by granting planning permission for this development. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Before we move on, just to clarify that Councillor Robin Cook, who, when I called the roll call, was not able to respond, but he was able to hear. So I just for the avoidance of any doubt, I would like to confirm that Councillor Robin Cook is in the meeting and that he can...
Chairman, it's Councillor Robin Legg.
Sorry, Councillor Robin Legg. What was I saying? Something else. Yes, that he is in the meeting and that he can hear the discussion. He has been able to hear the discussion from the start. So I am content that he is fully present in the meeting, even though he couldn't actually respond to the roll call, and that he's able to participate.
Chairman, it's Kate Critchell. I just need to confirm that with you. Phil, can we confirm we cannot hear Councillor Legg? Because if we cannot hear Councillor Legg, a councillor has to be heard at least in a meeting for them to be able to participate.
Chairman, Phil Crowther here. Yes, that's correct. So we would need confirmation from Councillor Legg that not only that he heard the presentation from the start from himself, but we also need to make sure that everyone, so members of the committee and the public, can hear him speak. So unfortunately, if Councillor Legg can't make his microphone work, he won't be able to take part.
Can we just ask Councillor Legg, can we hear you, Councillor Legg? Can you try your microphone and see whether or not you can speak? Can you check your microphone and see if it is on mute?
Chairman, it's Kate. I cannot see Councillor Legg at all.
Right.
Therefore, I don't think that he is quite properly in the meeting
No,
space.
I would have to agree with that. I'm very sorry, Councillor
that he
Legg,
logs off and tries again and sees if he can join us for the next item.
Yes, thank you, Kate. I'm very sorry, Councillor Legg, but we need to have you fully present in the meeting, and we do need to be doing this absolutely by the book. If you would follow Mrs. Critchell's advice and log off and try and log on again, and then if you're fully present in the meeting, you can vote on the next item. If you can't do that, you're very welcome to follow the meeting, but I'm afraid if we can't have you fully present, you won't be able to vote. Sorry to be a stickler about that, but it is important that we get this right. Thank you very much. Can we go back to our agenda then, where we had heard Robert has read the agent's report. Hannah, do you have any comment that you want to make on that report? I suspect not. Or Steve?
No, thank you, Chairman.
That's fine, thank you. Moving on to the committee deliberation on this. I would like to, if I may, call the Gillingham members first, if they would like to kick off the meeting. Perhaps Councillor Apothecary, if you're with us, you would like to speak first on this item.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, I do have a question or two for Charlotte, yes, if I may. There seem, in the letters of complaints particularly, letters against the approval of this application, there seems to be some confusion regarding the size of the existing farmhouse in comparison to the size of the proposed dwelling. Please could you explain whether in calculating the existing floor space, any other outbuildings have been included or not?
Yes, I can confirm on that. I would first stress, however, that the guidance, the 50% guidance that they're referring to in terms of the increase in the size of the dwelling, because obviously there's a guide, is set out in the supporting text of the policy and isn't actually contained within the policy itself. So it's not a policy requirement, but it obviously assists in the assessment of the proposal to see whether or not there would be a materially greater size and consideration there. However, I can qualify the question and answer it by stating that the domestic outbuilding within the site has formed part of the calculations for the floor space of the existing dwelling. I would also refer to the inspector in the appeal decision for the previous scheme, where they did advise that the outbuildings could be deemed part of the dwelling, and so long as they obviously are incidental to the dwelling, sit within the residential curtilage. And in this case it does. It sits in the front garden, is accessed from the dwelling, and sits as a domestic outbuilding there that is obviously now proposed for demolition, and that's why it's being formed part of the floor space calculation. But I would go back to my point that the calculations that have been provided are just one facet. They literally are for the dealing with the guidance matter. They're not the key policy requirement. The requirement of the policy is whether the replacement dwelling is of a size and design that is no more visually intrusive in the landscape than the existing dwelling, because in this case officers consider that the proposal before us has been amended in a way whereby, whilst there is an increase in the floor space, the configurations of the dwelling with the two-storey element reduced and the more of the floor space set further back into the site, along with the other changes made, would ensure that it wouldn't appear any more visually intrusive. So it's in itself is only one test and is not the only consideration.
Thank you. And could you also please say whether the proposed covered balcony has been included in your calculations for the new development?
Okay. So the covered balcony has not been included in the calculations. The requirement in the supporting text, again, this is supporting text, this is guidance, is to count the external floor space, and that would be the floor space of which is habitable essentially, and where it is enclosed by walls as you measure up to the outside of the wall there with the external floor space. And so it hasn't been counted, and on that point it's worth adding that a recommendation to remove permitted development rights is recommended to be added, and with that it could be worded in a way that would make it clear that in terms of enlarging the dwelling, that would also mean that they could not enclose the balconies to form part of the dwelling, and therefore it wouldn't form part of the proposed floor space.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you. Anything else you wish to say on this, Councillor Apothecary?
Well, only really, I suppose, my opinion now.
Yes,
whilst I find the contemporary buildings quite appealing, actually, I feel they're better suited tucked into a hillside rather than on the top. A very large contemporary building, or in fact any new building, on the ridgeline is bound to be controversial. The new scheme has taken into account many of the reasons for past refusal, and I can see the amount of glazing has been reduced in the previous application, but I still feel that in such a prominent position there will obviously be light pollution, with a possible lighthouse effect over the Stour Valley way towards Bugley and Sandley. However, my main concern is the increase in scale over the existing farmhouse. It's stated in the report that the overall increase is 47%, but to be honest, I'm not convinced about the accuracy of that statement, and consider that it fails to meet criteria E and F of policy 28 of the local plan. This would mean it would be significantly more visually intrusive in the current landscape than the existing dwelling it would replace. So unfortunately, I'm unable to support this application.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Rideout, the other Gillingham councillor, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, please. Thank you,
Yes.
Chairman. Thanks, first of all, Charlotte, for a great report. I particularly like the photographs, they're very helpful, although I do know the area fairly well. Yes, this application is on a very elevated position overlooking the Stour Valley. It's not a designated area, and understandably there have been many concerns from residents. It is a contemporary design, not everyone's cup of tea. But changes have been made to reduce its visual prominence and break up the mass and make it more acceptable in the rural landscape. I appreciate that, but I've got a few concerns myself, and I've got a few questions on conditioning, please, Charlotte. First of all, with reference to the landscaping, yep, there's a good mix of deciduous and evergreen, particularly on that northwest elevation to disguise the sort of the rear of the building when you look at it from the valley. Future maintenance scheme of the planting. with reference to condition 5, it says the planter scheme must be maintained in accordance with the agreed details. Is there a way we can make this a little bit more robust, precise, maybe even state years for maintenance, maybe protect the planting by TPO as been alluded to by the tree officer, and maybe possibly plant more mature trees so they get a good start. Secondly, with reference to the glazing, I am concerned about glare. Is there anything we can do in the conditioning about anti-glare and light pollution, perhaps conditioning of the louvres and blinds for evening and winter time? And thirdly, the future maintenance of the exterior treatment, either cladding. A lot of effort's gone into the exterior palette to make it more neutral tones to blend in with the landscape, but future-proofing this, you know, a new owner may wish to paint a different colour, might paint it white, which stand out far more. So is there anything we can condition in that respect? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Charlotte, would you like to address those 3 questions?
Yes, I will. Charlotte here. Yes, turning to the first question, in terms of the long-term, the maintenance plan, it's been specified in the suggested condition a minimum of a 5-year period. That's a standard condition. It can be varied, having regard in this instance to the importance of landscaping to mitigate the visual impact and to ensure that that we do get a successful plant growth over a longer period. It could be extended up to sort of 10 to 15 years, as opposed to the 5 years that we've have. So that could be amended.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And now to the second question. In terms of the louvres, there was a sum shown on the submitted elevations for part of the glazing. So that would be what's before us and what we would be considering. So we couldn't extend that amount through a detail there. It would have to be amended on the plans. However, there could be a condition that would require the submission of details of glazing, in particular that would require the glazing to be an anti-glare, anti-reflective sort of glazing, and details of that to be submitted. And then obviously the condition would need to require that they be retained in perpetuity for the long term there. That deals with that. So then turning to the blinds and whether the light pollution element rather than the glare that we've addressed there, the light spill, there is conditions that can be added in which you require the submission of details for a scheme for automatic blinds that can come down outside of daylight hours, so when the internal lights within the property are switched on, and that obviously would deal with the evenings and with the winter months as well. These sort of conditions have been used in dark sky areas of AONBs and natural more designated sort of landscapes, national parks and the like, already have been used to some success on such types of developments as this. And then the last question, turning to the materials. Yes, so if we'd want to make sure that the palette of materials is going to allow for the dwelling to appear nestled into the hillside here with the landscaping, and so it would need to be of a neutral palette. With that in mind, you then want to maintain that palette long term, and so a condition we could amend a condition that removes permitted development rights in terms of altering the dwelling house. So at the moment that we have got conditions removing permitted development rights for extending, enlarging and altering the dwelling as well as outbuildings and so forth, but we could qualify that further by in the same way as I suggested for the balconies, by stating that this would also include any sort of rendering, cladding, painting over of the walls to obviously to address the concern over that long term for any future owners. That could be a condition could be worded there to remove that permitted development right for that, and there would be justification obviously with the landscape and the visual impact interest there.
Thank you, Charlotte. Chairman, if the conditions could be included, I think that would help enormously with this application.
Thank you very much. Yes, so Charlotte, can you be drafting while listening? Can you also be drafting some conditions here, and then we will come back and clarify exactly what the conditions are that we are suggesting while I take a few more members to speak. Is that all right? Can you multitask there with a bit of help from Hannah in the background? Thank you very much. I have Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, we're just
Councillor. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit slowed down, I'm afraid. Yeah, thank you. I'm online now. Just can I go, Charlotte, for you, please? The drawing you showed of the side elevation of the house, the new house, with the balcony on the left-hand side. Can you bring that up for me again, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can having some challenges with the flicking through.
Yeah, no, I do.
So if you bear with me one moment. So it's the side elevation, just to.
It's the drawing. It's the drawing of it.
The drawing of the proposal. Yeah. Just a moment. I'll just try and get back to that one.
So I just want confirmation where the balcony looks over to. Does it look over to the village?
Yes, it does, but I'll just check that.
Sure,
Sorry, I'm having
All right, you'll get there.
Yeah.
You have to flick through one at a time. I know.
I do. Yes, it's not letting me.
No.
Quick away.
Shall I tell you what the observation was I saw? Because if it's overlooking the village, then it's quite imposing, really, because of the fact it's like a huge balcony overlooking, like you're looking down on the village. And therefore the fact, and also the light pollution, which was my major concern that Valerie said. And the thing is no, not that one.
No, it's coming through. It's just
brilliant. Thank you.
It's
brilliant.
being rather slow.
Yeah, we've all got that, I'm afraid. That's what I'm looking at.
Right, I think we're almost back through the photos now. So if I get the proposed, so it'll be, and this is a side elevation, so you can see it's perhaps not too clear here. You can see the glazing that we have there. So there is that as well on the side there. Obviously that faces towards the farm buildings, but obliquely there it would cast across the valley. So yes, you can see here on the other side.
Where's the balcony look over?
Yeah, so the balconies, you can see, I'm just going back to the floor plans because it's a bit clearer on the floor plans than the elevations. We can see that the balcony sort of wraps around here to the side with the sort of openings, sliding doors. You can see, just make out this sort of arrows here. So yes, it is sort of wrapping around this corner here, the glazing with the balcony here.
Yeah.
Yes, and then as I say, the farm building's sitting here, so that's a side elevation across to there, with the valley views, I suppose, that you're looking across from this direction, obviously.
Yeah, towards the valley. Yeah.
Yeah, towards the valley. Yeah.
So it's quite imposing, isn't it? When overlooking. That's fine. That one's fine. Yeah.
Yep.
That one there. That's looking towards
the northwest valley. Yeah, this is a northwest elevation that faces onto the valley. Yes.
So you're actually over the land itself in the village.
Yes, and but you'll note that the roof here extends all the way along and overhangs over this side, over where the balcony comes around, so it will overhang the glazing. Okay. And again here on this elevation where it's obviously that's the facing onto the north towards the valley that way, that's the northwest elevation here. Right. Yes, so there is the roof overhang that will extend over around the wraparound glazing there.
Okay, well, it just concerns me because it's quite imposing. It really is. The things that when you're looking up from the village and up to the valley, you'll actually be looking directly at this balcony, big as it is. You know, so you're not being, it's like being not left out of view, shall we say? But I mean, that's the one concern I've got. And the other one, as I said, Valerie made it quite clear, the glazing and the lighthouse effect, which we had in another kind of thing a while ago. It sits on top of the valley and it will be just like a huge lighthouse, but that's my concerns anyway. I just wanted to come to that. Thank you for showing that, Charlotte.
Thank you very much. Charlotte, could you just confirm how far away this property as the site is from the village, so that I've got an idea in my mind's eye about just how much it does loom over? So how
oh wow, it's quite a distance because it's across the valley.
Yes.
I as I say, I haven't got a measurement at hand at the moment, but I would say it's, I mean, we're obviously, this is the lowest part, this is Nations Road. The actual, if you're looking from the higher grounds as the slopes up the other side of the valley here, you are looking at a very significant distance, hundreds of, few hundred meters, I would have thought.
Yeah.
I can't sort of give a more precise
no, that's a very helpful. Yeah. That's a very helpful slide. So we can get an idea from that picture how close the building is actually to any other properties.
Yes,
yeah.
I mean, there'd be no,
it's more about visibility, the visibility than the fact that it will be in close proximity to any other. So it won't be looming over any other properties in that sense, will it? No. Okay, thank you very much. That's helpful. Good. Thank you.
Sherry.
Was that it, Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, just basically seeing how much it was actually looking into people's homes and looking down the valley. I can see in the middle of the plot, right in the middle distance between, there are houses there as well. So I'm just wondering if they've been affected as well.
I mean, again, they are a significant distance away and at a lower level. They'd be looking up, but it would be at some distance there. So there wouldn't be at that distance any overbearing impact that you could find. So there wouldn't be any concerns on amenity so much given the distance, the separation that we're looking at there.
Right, thank you very much, Charlotte. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm sure you won't be surprised this is a tree-related question. It seems to me that this whole application, the principle of supporting it, is based around blending the building in using landscape planting, to which I understand this, but then I'm totally lost as to the rest of what is put, and that's from somebody who's been doing horticultural now for 20 years. So we take almost guaranteed 24/7, 365 days a year in leaf leylandii out, but we keep an ash tree. Ash trees are the last to leaf. They are also prone to disease. So what long-term future is that? And it then suggests using evergreen hornbeam. I've never heard of evergreen hornbeam in my entire life. Hornbeam is semi-evergreen, and for those of you who don't know, that basically means a bit like beech. If you cut it tightly, it will retain some of its dead leaves. It's not really something that works in an open structure of a tree, certainly not on top of a hill in a potentially windy aspect. You know, if you're wanting an evergreen tree, you should be proposing either more leylandii, Italian cypress, cotoneaster, photinia, all those types of things. What's being proposed here, in my opinion, does not and will not block out this building and any light that it produces to the surrounding area. To me, it doesn't work.
Charlotte, thank you. Would you like to comment on that? Extremely well informed, as always, helpful intervention from Councillor Hall.
Well, as I'm not a tree expert, so I can't advise specifically on that, but we did consult with the council's tree officer on the landscape proposals that are before us, with the mix of species that have been set out as set out by Councillor. The council's tree officer supports the proposals and considers that they would provide a suitable mitigation for the visual impact and subject to conditions. In respect of the ash, there would be an intention to look at having that protected and whether a new tree can be put in its place, replanted in time. There would a condition has been suggested specifically on the ash to ensure that it's certainly in the short term. Obviously, we have ash dieback longer term, so we can't guarantee its long term success, but that it is protected from the building, and that we would want some arboricultural method statement to be provided to show how that protection will be ensured, and long term that we would look to the tree officer has advised that they would look to protect it with a tree preservation order that would mean that some tree could be put in place that would offer that, and I think the intention is that be incorporated with the landscaping. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, if I could come back, please.
Yes, please.
It would be worthwhile in any condition, bearing in mind that we're talking about using landscaping to effectively hide this building, that any tree planting must be of a guaranteed minimum size before it's planted, because there is no point at all in stating that trees have to be planted if there's not a size that is related to the start off, because you could end up with somebody buying half a dozen saplings that won't hide anything at all. I think this seriously needs to be looked at and put in some form of condition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Charlotte?
Yes, I mean, yes, we could look to amend the condition in a way that would ensure that, obviously, I'd be mindful that making sure that it can be done in a way that will allow for the successful planting of that. If you're looking for a more mature tree, to make sure that it will actually be feasible, because obviously you wouldn't want to translocate something that then isn't going to thrive in that setting. But if it can be done, then there is possible that we could look at a condition that could revise the landscaping in such a way that we could provide different specimens and different ages of them, so that we're not solely relying on saplings in the short term, but being mindful that it will grow.
Yes.
Sorry, Chair. Hannah Smith, could I just say something on that
please
point
do.
that
Yes,
Councillor
please,
Hall's raised? Condition 5 does specify the exact planting plan. So the problem with that is we'd have to probably move away from condition 5, where it says the soft landscaping works detailed on approved drawing must be carried out in full during the first planting season, to a condition that says something like, notwithstanding the submitted details, a landscaping scheme shall be submitted prior to first occupation for approval. And I think we have to be clear that, you know, if we feel that the landscaping, if it's just a matter of species, that might be a route we can go down. But if it's more fundamental, and councillors feel that this development can't be it can't be sort of appropriately landscaped within the location, that's a sort of different issue in terms of its acceptability, in terms of its impact. So I just think you need to be clear on what we're trying to do through the conditions, so that they're enforceable and clear. And I think the reason that the liandai has been taken out is to try to move away from a uncharacteristic form of landscaping. Whether the whether the species are precisely correct or not, that might be better dealt with through condition. But please, you know, bear that in mind, that we'd have to sort of revise condition 5 to do that, and probably remove it.
That's very helpful, Helen, because I'm very cognizant of Councillor Hall's very particular expertise here, but I'm also, as a general rule, reluctant as a committee to overrule a condition that has been seen and accepted by our tree officers, because they are our experts and that's their job. So I'm slightly torn here, because Councillor Hall also has a great deal of expertise, but I don't feel very comfortable about dismissing out of hand something that has been accepted by our tree officers, as I say, who are on our behalf our experts. Councillor Hall, can you see condition 5? Is there something that we could do with that would satisfy you? We've already had a request that we should put something into condition 5 that extends the landscaping, the condition that it should be looked after for 15 rather than 5 years. Is there a phrase in there that could go in that would satisfy you about the appropriateness of the species chosen and the size of the planting?
I can't see condition 5, unfortunately. With regard to Hannah's point about the Leylandii, yes, you can argue that's not a native species. You could also, by looking at the photo, suggest that it's in the region of about 20 years old. So it's been in that landscape now for quite a long time. I just think that as a council, as a committee, if we are going to put in conditions which are for sheltering, hiding, disguising a building, we need to make sure that they're the right ones. And I appreciate, Chairman, where you're coming from, you know, and I'm not suggesting that officers are wrong in their choice. I would just phrase it better as saying, I think there are better alternatives which could be used.
Right. How does the committee wish to progress this then? Because we're spending a long time on it's an extremely important issue, but we need to resolve this because condition 5 refers to the drawings that that have been submitted and have been seen by our tree officer. So unless we're going to,
Chairman, can I?
Yes, please. Yes.
Councillor Bill Pipe. You're having a different view of me. I hope you can see me. Notwithstanding the tree issue, you know, I see this application as a good and proper application, you know, fit for purpose. And I'd like to see a movement now towards voting on the recommendation.
Yes, thank you very much. I have two further people, 3 further people wishing to speak, but I absolutely take your point. We need to resolve this question of the this condition 5 then. Either Councillor Hall is satisfied with it or he is not. Councillor Hall, can you be satisfied with condition 5? If we can just put some note in there, can we add a note, Hannah and Charlotte, about the size of the planting? And the number of years?
Yes. The number of years would be dealt with in the maintenance condition.
Right.
Which I think, Charlotte, if I'm right, is a separate condition.
It is a separate condition. That's condition 6.
Number.
Yeah.
Number 7. Yes. 6.
Yes.
So the landscape management plan says currently a period of 5 years. So that could be changed in condition 6 quite easily to cover a longer period of maintenance.
Good, thank you. Can we just establish how long would be a reasonable period to do that for then? This morning we gave one 15 years. I'm sorry, I have a helicopter going over very low. I hope you can still hear me. This morning we went from 5 to 15 years. Is 15 years a reasonable time?
I would say so.
Councillor Hall would like 15 years. Charlotte and Hannah, any reason why we shouldn't make it 15 years?
So that would be acceptable if councillors are happy with that.
Yes, I think we're happy with 15 years. So that deals with the question of the looking after the maintenance. What about the size of the planting? Is there anything we can put in there to comfort Councillor Hall, who is concerned that we're going to be putting saplings in? I'm looking at the wording.
We could put a separate paragraph in that says all planting shall be, and then we could specify the size in the condition. I'm not certain about looking what the sizes are in the landscaping plan or whether that's specified or not. But Councillor Hall, what will you be looking for in terms of maturity of the planting?
Well, in the reason under 5, it says to ensure the satisfactory landscaping of the site in the interest of ensuring the long-term visual amenity and character of the area. I mean, that's what the basis of the sentence needs to be, because in essence you're wanting to plant something that fulfills that reason. So therefore you've got to be looking at starting with trees at least 10 foot high, 3 meters.
Could we have a sentence in there then that says, for the notwithstanding the details in the approved drawings, the planting to be of a size no less than 10 foot or whatever? Is that possible? Can we put that in and just sort
yes,
this out?
so we could put after it says so after it says following the substantial completion of the development, the all planting shall be of a size at a minimum height of how far was that? Sorry, Councillor Hall.
10 foot.
Yes.
10 feet.
I
Is
mean, of
that
course,
approximately 3 meters?
Some of that, Hannah, depends on how close they're planting to the actual property itself. If it's a distance, if it's a distance way, you could be looking at 8 foot being fine, but I wouldn't suggest any smaller than 8 foot.
Right,
okay.
8 to 10 foot. I'm calling it 3 meters
yes,
because I think we are in danger of over egging this now. We're not on site, and we have to. We're giving a steer here to our tree officers, and if we've said that we're looking for the planting to be a minimum of 10 meters, then of 3 meters rather, then that gives them a steer of what we're looking for. Is that reasonable? Otherwise, we'll be here all afternoon discussing trees, fascinating though it is. And I have got a number of other people needing to raise other points. Could we be satisfied with that committee for the moment?
Yes,
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Matt. I'm moving on now to Councillor Jones.
Hooray, thank you, Chairman. I absolutely love the design, and I think I do despair at the number of people who seem to be frightened of a contemporary new look. And I don't want the owner to have to plant trees so that nobody can see him, and he doesn't have, you know, the views that he is paying for. He's living in a beautiful spot. He will want views, and if that was my house, I'd have a balcony going all the way round. I really don't believe that we should obstruct the owner's views. He should be able to enjoy the landscape from where he lives. I mean, we cannot live with thatched cottages forever. We just have to move on, and it's a beautiful design, and I just want to vote this through, and I'm very happy with it. I don't want conditions making it so that nobody can see the house on. It's just ridiculous. So I would just like to second. I think Councillor Rideout mooted it. I'd just be very happy to second it going forward.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Pipe.
So I just unmuted. I fully agree with what my colleague has just said. It's a lovely place. I'd die to live there, but I can't afford it. I did say earlier when I spoke that we should move to the recommendation, and I did say at the time that I would propose we accept that recommendation with the. But I don't think at the time we'd actually agreed the wording on the tree thing, and I'm not sure that we should be putting stipulations on planning applications like this just because some people don't want to see it. I think everybody should see it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Andrews, did you have something new to say?
Thank you, Chairman. Not a lot new. I just say I love the contemporary design as well. I think it adds to the diversity of the buildings within the area. I agree with Councillor Hall with the conditioning on the trees, that they have to be of some kind of maturity. And I'm mindful that the applicant has been respondent in the comments of the inspector, and I would be approving. I would like to approve this application. I would also like to say, Chairman, new rules have just come out. The 1 metre plus, and this would have been an ideal site visit situation.
It would have been, wouldn't it? And we would all have enjoyed it. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chairman. I think everybody's covered what I was about to say, but I fully support this proposal as is, with the light pollution is the only issue, and if that can be mitigated without taking away from this guy's view, because Councillor Pipe just said, you know, I'd kill for that view as well, and I think we need to be bold in allowing contemporary development. I think, as Councillor Jones said, that we can't live in thatched cottages forever. So I would actually like to see this go through without you know, all respect to Councillor Hall, without the height stipulation on the trees, but I'm happy to support either way. I'd prefer it if we just left it as open as it possibly could be. Thank you, Chair.
Right. Councillor Rideout, I have you next. You were proposing this.
Sorry, I'm here now.
Yes, thank you very much. Are you you proposed it, and Councillor Jones was seconding it. So I need to ask you now: are you proposing it with as amended? We have suggested amendments. On condition 5 that we have a phrase about the minimum height of the saplings that go in. That's not about how high they're going to grow. It's about how big the saplings are when they are planted, so that they've got a fighting chance of surviving, as I understand it. We have an amendment to condition 6, which changes the maintenance from 5 to 15 years. And we have something that needs to go in the maintenance for anti-glare glazing, which officers have yet to come back to me with. Those are the 3 amendments I have understood. Are you proposing it with those amendments or without, Councillor Rideout?
Chairman, I think I propose with amendments.
With those 3 amendments.
Yes, and with the external pallet conditioning.
Yes, and the external palette. Yes. Okay. So could we just, because we'll have to put this to the vote as amended, so we need the amendments very clear before we do that. Can I just ask then, Councillor Jones, are you seconding it with these amendments?
I don't want the amendments, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. I just think with respect on the owner, I'm happy to support it, but not with the amendments.
Not with the amendments. Is it anybody seconding it with these amendments?
Chair, I've just wrote in the comments.
No, I can't.
Could I suggest a compromise, Chair, and that we actually vote on the amendments first?
Yes, but I have to have, Councillor Andrews, you are happy to second the amendment. I have a proposer and a seconder for this application with the conditions as amended. That is the condition 6 amended from 5 to 15 years, condition 5 with the phrase about the minimum height of the planting, and the condition on maintenance with the wording. Charlotte and Hannah, can you give me the wording, please, that we're doing for the anti-glare glazing and the maintenance of the cladding?
Okay. So for the anti-glare first,
yes,
I have prior to the installation of the glazing on the dwelling, hereby approved. Details of the proposed glazing shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. Such details shall include a specification that the glass is non-reflective. And then the development shall be completed out in accordance with the agreed details and shall be permanently maintained thereafter with the non-reflective glass. And reason to minimise light spill or pollution and protect in order to protect the character of the surrounding landscape.
That's lovely. That's extremely clear. Thank you. And the maintenance of the cladding, Councillor Rideout's point there.
So is that specifically relating to ensuring they cannot cover it over in time, so removing the permitted development rights?
Yes, I think it was.
Hannah Smith here. We could add that to the general permitted development restrictions condition 9, where it says, notwithstanding the provisions of the Town and Country Planning Act, there shall be no garages, sheds or other outbuildings. Oh, sorry, condition 8. There should be no enlargements or alterations. And then we could write to include any alterations to the external finish of the dwelling in condition 9, rather than have an extra condition there, if that's okay.
That's good. Okay. Now, because we can't put all this up on the screen, I need to be confident that the committee are absolutely clear. Now, what I'm going to ask you to vote, this is that you're approving this as amended with those 4 amendments to the conditions. They're not. major, but that's what we are now putting to the vote. We have had a proposer and a seconder that we approve this application as amended.
Chair, I think there was one, Hannah Smith here, there was one other point that Councillor Rideout made in terms of the blinds. Was that correct in terms of operation of the blinds at night or not? Can I just clarify that point? I had one on
yes, I did.
glare,
Sorry.
then I had one. Sorry.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did make a comment.
Are we getting danger of being a little bit over controlling here?
If we just clarify whether we want that or not, sorry, Chair, then we can either include that or not.
Right.
Chairman?
Yes.
Given the very prominent location of this application, I think it is relevant.
All right, I would then have to ask what are we proposing then with regard to blinds, and is it enforceable?
Charlotte, do you have anything drafted on that already?
I do have something drafted ready, yes. It would say blackout blinds shall be installed and permanently maintained on, well, it can be either on all the glazing or on the glazing in the elevations that are facing towards the valley, so that can be specified, or it can be on all glazing given its elevated position. Each blind shall be fully closed at dusk each day and remain fully closed during hours of darkness. The blinds shall be operated by timed proximity sensors, which should be kept in full working order at all times. Details of all blinds, their material, which shall be fully opaque, that's in brackets, shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority before any development is carried out above slab level, above foundation level. So we'd need that in the same way as for materials. And obviously then it would say the development should be completed carried out in accordance with the agreed details and shall be permanently maintained thereafter, much in the same way as the non-reflective glazing condition.
All right, I would just ask my question again. Is a condition such as that usual, and is it enforceable? Sorry, you might not have heard me. I have the entire Air Force going over my house here now. Is a condition like that usual, and is it enforceable?
So this is a condition. Yeah, sorry, Hannah.
Chair.
Yes, Hannah Smith here. Yes, it's precise enough to be enforceable. What we have to direct our minds at is it required to make the development acceptable in planning terms? So
yes,
if it's not, then it shouldn't be imposed. But if councillors felt that the potential effect of the glazing up on the ridge there was such that without that condition it would be unacceptable, it would be a reasonable and enforceable condition to apply.
Yes, I think we're going to have to vote now on, because it seems to me that this is a lot of amendments, and I'm sorry, committee, but I think we need to vote on these amendments one by one. I was going to take them on block, but I think we're getting to a level of detail here. This is quite a lot of amendments that we're making now, and I'm not sure everybody in the committee is comfortable with every one. So I'm no wish to prolong this, but I'm thinking we need to vote on these amendments one by one. I'm just looking to see if my solicitor's there to give me a nod as to whether that is a correct way to proceed, a wise way to proceed.
Chairman, Phil Crowther here. My advice would be that the normal way of proceeding would be to have a specific proposal, either to accept or reject the development with the precise changes to the conditions that the proposer and seconder want to vote on. So I would expect, rather than members voting on the conditions, that there's a specific proposal and recommendation for a specific outcome with such amended conditions, or equally not if members, if the proposal was to refuse, set out. Because there may be some members who wish to refuse the application. So sort of voting on conditions first,
yes,
would be almost putting the cart before the horse.
Thank you. Yes, except that what I'm picking up is that members wish to vote on some of the changes that we're making to these conditions are acceptable and some are not. And I'm not sure how we're going to get to this without I allow you to vote.
So I think,
yes.
So Chairman, I think there was a proposal and a seconder on the table for all of those to approve with all 4 amendments to conditions, so or 5 as it is. So the anti-reflective glazing, the blinds, the stop light spill, the increased maintenance period for planting, and I also think that the size of the trees was also proposed and seconded. The only thing I'd like to point out that was picked up in debate is I think there was mention about the motivation for the tree height condition, and I think it was more to Councillor Hall's suggestion was more to ensure that the trees were of a sufficient size to provide screening rather than their survival.
Oh, all right, fair enough. Yes, they're yes. To be strictly pedantic about this, the proposer and seconder, which was Councillor Rideout and Councillor Jones, Councillor Rideout and Councillor Andrews, proposed before we came to the question of blinds. Now I know Councillor Rideout is happy with the blinds, so Councillor Andrews, are you happy to second this proposal with all 4 of those amendments to the conditions? Can you just confirm that for me?
Yes, I can confirm that, Chair.
Good. Now we have a proposer and a seconder for this application to be accepted with all 4 of these amended conditions. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we're now going to vote on. So if you, I will call your name and you're telling me either for or against or abstain for could we have the proposal, could we have the recommendation? No, we can't have it up on the screen, of course, because we've not got the opportunity to write it. So I hope you're very clear what the 4 amendments are that you're now voting on. They are quite simply amendments to the conditions to make the conditions stronger. I'm now going to call you.
Chairman, I'm not clear. I'm not.
Right. Thank you. I was hoping. What are you not clear about?
The 4 amendments. Do they, for instance, include the blinds issue?
Yes, they do.
So the solicitor mentioned 5 and we're talking about 4. Which one aren't we talking about?
Outside cladding.
Chairman, I think it's a case of the solicitor not being able to count. Sorry, it's Phil Crowther. I think it is 4 to answer Councillor Pipe's question.
Yeah.
Do we have an outside maintenance committee as well?
Let's not go
Sorry,
down
Chair,
that road.
Hannah Smith. That was an amendment. The external finish was an amendment to the existing condition 8 to include no alterations to the external finish to condition 8 of the PD removal condition.
Right.
Right. I'm really sorry. I need to be confident that you all know what these conditions are. Hannah or Charlotte, could I ask you once more to just run through the amended conditions that we are now voting on? Just read them out one by one so everyone knows exactly what we're voting on, because it's important, because we have had a roundabout discussion here and I need to be sure that members know what I'm asking them to do. Would you mind doing that for us, Hannah? Or Charlotte?
I can, yes.
Thank you.
Charlotte.
Thank you, Charlotte.
So I'll go through as I understand it. The condition 3 on as set out in section 18, which details the materials, can be can be amended. Is that right? Do I get no? Hang on, sorry. Let's get this clear. That was to this one.
Charlotte, could you maybe
yes.
start with the blinds and the reflective glass conditions
okay,
that
so
you
these
had?
would be,
and read
yes,
those two out
right.
first.
Yes, because they're additional conditions. They're not.
They're additional conditions.
That's right.
Not
Yes, thank you.
amending, yeah.
Thank you. That would be helpful. Right. So, first additional condition would be on the non-reflective glazing, and this would be worded to say, prior to the installation of the glazing on the dwelling hereby approved, details of the proposed glazing shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority. Such details shall include a specification that the glass is non-reflective. The development shall be completed in accordance with the agreed details and shall be permanently maintained thereafter with the non-reflective glass. And reason to minimise light pollution and in order to protect the character of the surrounding landscape.
Thank you.
That's the first additional condition. Turning to the second additional condition on the automated blackout blinds, this would read as blackout blinds shall be installed and permanently maintained on the glazing in the dwelling. I mean, it would be either on some of the elevations or on all elevations. That would need to be clarified and confirmed by members as to which they would prefer, whether it be on all of it. Each blind shall be fully closed at dusk each day and remain fully closed during hours of darkness. The blinds shall be operated by timed proximity sensors, which shall be kept in full working order at all times. Details of all blinds, their material, brackets, which shall be fully opaque, close brackets, shall be submitted to and approved in writing by the local planning authority before any development is carried out above damp proof course level.
Thank you. And Charlotte, that's the northwest elevation.
Well, it can be on the northwest elevation or on all elevations. It would need to be
I think Councillor Rideout is saying the northwest elevation.
Yes, okay,
so I think we'll go with that.
Right.
So that's the two new ones, and then the ones that the conditions that we've amended. Condition 5.
Just one moment on that. Just to be clear, that they would need to also say the development shall be completed in accordance with that, so that we would be sure that the blinds are carried out in accordance with what's been agreed in terms of details of the blinds, and that they shall be retained on the maintained rather permanently thereafter with those blinds.
Thank you. Yes,
okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's 2, and then the condition 5.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yes. So turning to the amended condition 5 for the soft landscaping. So this would be notwithstanding the details of the approved drawing, and we can spell out the drawing number for that. All tree planting should be planted to a minimum height of 3 meters and must be carried out in full during the first planting season, brackets October to March, following the substantial completion of the development. And then the planted development scheme must be maintained in accordance with the agreed details. And then following the implementation of the soft landscaping works, written confirmation of these works shall be submitted to the local planning authority, and the reason to ensure the satisfactory landscaping of the site in the interest of ensuring the long-term visual amenity and character of the area.
Thank you. Excellent. And then the materials and maintenance, condition 3.
Okay. Well, condition 3, as I understand it, would require the submission of the details as opposed to what's detailed on the plans for that to be agreed, the samples and details of that. And it would be a separate condition to deal with the long-term maintenance of the materials through the removal of permitted development rights, which is a separate condition further down, and that is condition 8.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, to be clear, would we be amending condition 3, or
Charlotte, I think we need to take PD rights. Sorry, Hannah Smith. We need to take the PD rights away because the councillor's concern wasn't just how it was developed. I think it was the ongoing, it not being rendered or painted. So I think in condition 8 we can include without modification, no enlargements or alterations to the dwelling house or any external alterations to the finish of the dwelling house shall be permitted.
That's excellent. That covers off the points. That I think that now we have now got all the points that were concerning you wrapped up in the conditions, right? Okay, so now before I put this to the vote, I just need to go very quickly to Councillor Pipe and say, do you still need to come back and comment, Councillor Pipe, before I put this to the vote?
Only on the blinds issue, Madam Chairman. You know, you don't get that sort of regulation in the former East Germany. That what you're told when to draw your blinds.
That's why we're going to put it to the vote, because I'm aware that some of you will take a different view, but I'm told that we can only vote on this en bloc. We have a proposal to the seconder, or that we will accept this, that we will approve this planning application with the conditions as amended. I'm now going to put it to the vote. If you either like it or you don't vote it. If you vote against this, we will then, I can then put it to the vote unamended, if you see what I mean. So just concentrate on what you're doing.
Chairman.
Yes.
One moment, Charlotte here. Just quickly before they go to vote, there is also the maintenance was referred to earlier in regards to extending the maintenance period from the 5 years to either 10 or 15 years. Would that also be one of the conditions? Because that's a separate condition. That's condition 6.
Right.
Just for clarification, would that also be?
Right. Yes, please. We did say that. This is not what I like to do in a planning committee. We are in grave danger of rewriting this planning application from scratch, ladies and gentlemen. We now I'm confident that you're all clear of what these amendments are that you're voting, and I'm going to now put it to the vote on a roll call, and you're either for, against, or abstaining for approve this application as amended. Councillor Andrews.
For.
Councillor Cook.
Against.
Councillor Fry.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Jones.
Against.
Councillor Legg is not with us. Councillor Penfold. Councillor for. Thank you. Councillor Pipe.
Against.
Against. Councillor Apothecary.
Against.
Councillor Rideout.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
I make that carried. Do you make that carried, officers?
Yes, Chairman, Fiona here. I make that 6-4.
Yes,
sorry, 6-4 and 4 against.
Yes, so that is carried as amended. So thank you very much indeed. That was a rather like wrestling in mud, but we got to a conclusion in the end. Thank you very much. We must now press on to we have still got 2 more agenda items before us this afternoon. I'm now moving on to agenda 7C, Pond Walk in Stourbridge, and
Chair, how would you like us to comment when we want to speak, please?
Yes.
Because we put RTS in the speech column at 15:02, and on the last one you didn't pick up my request to speak at all.
I'm very, very sorry. You're doing exactly the right thing. That's entirely my error, and I can only apologise for that. And I will. It's because councillors, there was a lot of chat, and I have asked you not to put chat in the chat box, but only to put when you wish to speak. And if there's a lot of chat in there, then there's a possibility I might miss one. So please, no chat in the chat box, just request to speak. And I only apologise if I miss somebody out. We are now on to Pond Walk in Stourbridge. Mrs. Smith, would you like to present your report and recommendations? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an outline proposal for the erection of 9 dwellings. It's a scheme that was amended during the course of the determination to reduce it from 10 to 9. So it's an outline application with all matters reserved. So we're looking at the principle of development here today, rather than any of the finer details of the scheme. There's some planning history on the site. There was a proposal on this site for 20 affordable units, which has been previously consented. This scheme seeks a reduction in density to produce a result of 9 dwellings. This does mean that there's no contributions or affordable housing requirement in this instance on this application. So this is the application site location. It's within the settlement boundary of Stourbridge. It's therefore in accordance with our spatial distribution of dwellings in the North Dorset local plan. There's no neighbourhood plan adopted for this area. So just to give you an idea of the location of the site from the aerial photograph, it's pretty landlocked, the site. It's got development all around it, some allotments, this location here. The site would be accessed off of Pond Walk. It's an existing small development here. So this would be the single point of access to the site. So no access details at this point, apart from the principle of accessing the site from this location. In terms of constraints, it's quite highly constrained in terms of the fact it's, like the most of Stourbridge, washed over by conservation area. You can see that here. Let's turn the pointer on quickly. So that the whole of Stourbridge pretty much is designated as a conservation area, so it's a designated heritage asset. And also surrounding the site, we have Grove House, this location here. It's recently been designated a Grade 2 listed building. And we have Glebe Court here, which is also a Grade 2 listed building. Another key consideration on this site is some veteran trees located in the middle of the site, and they're quite key features in the landscape, these trees. So it's really quite fundamental that they're retained and safeguarded through the course of construction, and also then thereafter provide some amenity to the future development. You can see here, this is the Grade 2 listed building, Grove House here, and the other Grade 2 listed building in this location here. The access point is this location off of Pond Walk between these 2 dwellings. So this gives you an idea of the existing development in Pond Walk. It's nicely designed. It's an affordable scheme, but really nice detailing and quite a pleasant, spacious type feel to the proposal, to the existing development in this location. The access would be through Pond Walk to the development site. So just a little bit more on heritage assets, because this is obviously a key consideration in this case. This is Grove House, which is a really attractive, imposing building here, which is located here. So the site's immediately adjoining here. So scale isn't for determination at this point in time, but the layout, which I'll move on to, shows that 9 dwellings could be accommodated in this site without being too high density in relation to the very loose-knit character of the surrounding development. And this is Glebe Court, which is in this location here. So there's quite a lot of screening behind this listed property, so there wouldn't be too much intervisibility between the application site and the listed building here, which is formerly 2 properties, which is now 1 unit. This is only indicative, this layout. You can see the significant trees here. And there was on the indicative layout, there was a proposed dwelling closer to these properties, which has been removed from the scheme. It indicates that you could fit 9 dwellings on the site without it being too high density, and that sufficient landscaping could be required through the any reserve matters application. So key consideration again is the trees, and it has been a concern locally about the retention of these horse chestnut trees, which are veteran trees and really quite imposing in the landscape. the layout as proposed, you can see them here, would facilitate their retention and also provide enough space between the trees and the proposed development, so as not to prejudice them long term. Some of the hedgerow surrounding the site hasn't been maintained and is in a slightly poor condition, and the reserve matters application would be an opportunity to enhance the hedgerows and to require additional planting. So a closer look at the trees and how it would relate to possible dwellings around it. And you can see that there'd be an area of open space around the trees left to provide them with some amenity. So in terms of the main planning considerations, the location of the development is considered to be acceptable, being inside the settlement boundary of Stallbridge, which is a location that's identified for further growth in the local plan. There's no objection in terms of the highway and access point off of Pond Walk to serve the development. Again, heritage is dealt with through the fact that the quantum of development isn't considered to adversely affect the assets of significance, provided any reserve matters application responds positively in terms of the layout and scale. Trees again would be retained on the site and safeguarded through construction. The amenity of the surrounding properties could be safeguarded through the subsequent reserve matters application. So in terms of the planning balance, you've got the benefit of the 9 dwellings, which would help towards the lack of land supply in the former North Dorset area, which is currently running at around 4 years supply. So there's a need to make up that shortfall in relation to providing more housing within the area. And the planning balance would be, in this case, in view of there being no harm to heritage assets, there's no demonstrable issues that couldn't be overcome through the reserve matters application. And that moves on to the recommendation in this case, which is to grant planning permission subject to conditions, and also the amendment to condition 8 to ensure that development accords with the approved highway details. Thank you, Chair.
You're on mute, Chair.
Sorry,
Sherry,
Chairman,
you're
it's
still on
Kate
mute.
Critchell. You're currently muted. Thank you.
That makes a change. Steve Savage, do you wish to comment from that highways point of view here?
Just a little bit more information, Chair, if I may. The existing section of Pond Walk from Barrow Hill is adopted for the majority of its length. The short section where Hannah's indicating there is it's been offered for adoption. They're still undergoing the final remedial works. So the agreement hasn't yet been adopted, but we're confident that it will be. And just the illustrative layout has indicated that you should be able to get an adopted highway and a turning head there, subject to obviously not adversely impacting on the root structures of those trees. But in principle, Chair, we're supportive of the application.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. We have 2 submissions from the public, one from a member of the public objecting and one from Gregory Evans on behalf of the agent. And I believe, Charlotte, you're going to read these both to us. Charlotte Haynes to be our reader, is that right?
No, it'll be Robert Lennis on this one.
Robert, still our reader-in-chief. Robert, over to you. Thank you very much.
3 times lucky.
Yes.
The objection letter comes from Robert Sanger. In opposition to the proposed development, I would like to reiterate my past objection letter in case it becomes overlooked. Firstly, Pond Walk is in effect a cul-de-sac, which the residents enjoy a low traffic flow, the benefits of which provide a safe place for children to play and ride their bikes, etc. This haven would be destroyed by increased traffic. The new buildings would spoil the views across Blackmore Vale enjoyed by the local residents. The extra numbers of cars would further compromise the catastrophic situation that presently exists in the Stallbridge High Street area and has been considered in previous decisions of local planning application. Stallbridge has few wild places left for people and wildlife. This would disappear. There are some large venerable horse chestnut trees on the site which are apparently to be retained. I feel that the developers know that to remove them would cause public uproar, but to retain them is not preferable to them. In reality, to have such large shading trees in the vicinity of houses shedding leaves and possibly causing problems with roots and falling branches, the new residents will no doubt apply to have them removed or butchered. Or the developers would state that the trees are diseased and must be removed. My experience in these cases know this to be true. End of.
Thank you very much.
Next letter is in support from the applicant's agent, Gregory Evans. This is a statement on behalf of, oh, bear with me just a second. I'm about to run out of power and I have to plug in my computer.
That's all right. We'll use the time to do some breathing exercises to get us through the hot afternoon.
Sorry about
very
that.
much. That's all right.
These things happen. Right. This is a statement on behalf of North Dorset LLP, the applicant, in support of the application at Pond Walk. We thank the chairperson and members of the planning committee for considering this application under the current unusual circumstances. We thank you for their report and welcome the recommendation that this outline planning application for 9 new homes should be approved. The site is sustainably located within the settlement boundary of Stallbridge, a larger village identified for growth. Local facilities can be accessed by foot, and it is served by public transport. Historically, permission was granted at this site in 2015 for 20 units, but this permission has since lapsed. Importantly, the principle of residential development at this site is accepted. The applicant has worked closely with officers throughout the determination process and is excited that the indicative layout of this scheme, which includes 6 bungalows and 3 houses, is considered by your officers to be appropriate at this location. The 9 new homes proposed will positively contribute towards the council's housing supply, which should be welcomed as we note the council cannot currently demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. In line with the NPPF, the presumption in favor of sustainable development applies. Existing residential amenity of surrounding residents is protected. Parking standards will be met. Safe vehicular and pedestrian access is provided, and Dorset Highways has no objection. No protected trees would be lost, and ecological mitigation and enhancement will be provided to achieve a net gain in biodiversity at the site. The council's archaeologist has no objection. A planning condition will ensure homes on the site are protected from surface flooding and foul water drainage will comply with policy requirements. Significant. In line with guidance from the conservation officer, the indicative layout includes a large swath of open space in the eastern part of the site, which is closest to Grove Court and older trees which are to be retained. We welcome that the officer's report concludes that the Stallbridge Conservation Area and setting of listed buildings would be preserved. In summary, the proposal accords with local and national planning policy. This application represents sustainable development of 9 new homes at a site inside the settlement boundary for which there is a presumption in favor. We welcome that the application is recommended for approval. Accordingly, we respectfully request that the committee follows the officer's positive recommendation and resolves to grant planning permission. Thank you. The end.
Thank you very much indeed. Officers Hannah or Steve, do you have anything you want to come in and comment on from the public representations at this point?
No,
thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you both very much. So I have, moving on then to committee deliberations, I have already councillors Andrews and Taylor. Councillor Andrews.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As this is an outline planning permission, I don't think there's any problem with it at all. With the conservation officer supporting it, public rights of way, no objection, transport, no objection, and it's outline, so it's access really more than anything. So I'm proposing that we move to accept this recommendation by the officers.
Thank you very much indeed. Very helpful. Councillor Taylor.
I second that. I just agree with you. I think it's a great development, really do.
Right.
And it's very pretty, very spacious, very nice.
Good. Thank you very much. I have nobody else currently indicating that they want to speak.
Good.
I'll just give you a moment. No. Excellent. So I have had a proposer and a seconder that we accept this recommendation as we grant this recommendation as on the screen here. I'm now going to put this to the vote, ladies and gentlemen. As I call your name, would you tell me please whether you are for, against or abstain? Councillor Andrews.
For.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Fry.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Penfold.
For.
Councillor Pipe.
For.
Councillor Pothecary.
For.
Councillor Rideout.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. For, Chair.
That's excellent. Thank you very much indeed. That was very neatly done, members of the committee. Thank you very much. So that was unanimous. Moving on then to item 7D, Ustock College, Stumston, Newton. And this is to erect a perimeter security fence. I have to say I did indicate that I found the word security a little bit harsh in this context, but I'm sure we know what we mean. Mrs. Smith, would you like to present your report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I sought some clarification on the purpose of the fence. So, as stated, it's to erect a 2.33 metre high fence. So it's 33 centimetres over what would be permitted development. The reason the fence is required for the school is mostly in this case to keep children in the area safe, and also to keep intruders out. This is a specialist school accommodating a number of vulnerable children who need to be kept safe at all times. So that's the purpose of the requirement. It gives a safe outdoor space for the children to be able to occupy. So that there's similar fences around the site. They're fairly sort of see-through in terms of their appearance. They don't look too intrusive. So even though it's quite high, it will have this sort of appearance of seeing the sort of being able to see through it. It's not too obtrusive in that respect. In the wider grounds, there wouldn't be too much visibility from outside of the site, because this is the location of the fence in this location here where you can see the red line. It's actually on a bank, so you can see in the contours on this picture, on this plan here, the contour line. So the fence would be along in this direction here, up some steps, and then along the back of the bank and back down. And this is the existing building in this location here with openings out onto that space. So this gives an idea of the relationship between the area that would be enclosed, which is quite well contained within the site. And then this following picture here gives a better indication of where the fence would go. So it would be up the bank, around the back, and then back down around this space. And there's a paved area here, which would be contained within the secure area. This gives an idea of the sort of appearance of the fence, which is pretty sort of standard in appearance. And moving on to the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions outlined in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We have no public representations on this one, so I'm going to move straight to councillors, and I have first Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move straight away to propose this one. In my previous occupation, I've had to recommend numerous times that schools and educational facilities put up fences around to keep people out, occasionally to keep people in, but usually to stop wayward past students. So I would wholeheartedly recommend this. It seems sensible and practical. Thank you.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Councillor Taylor.
Okay, I'd like to second that to go straight ahead.
Thank you very much. Councillor Andrews.
Councillor Taylor, pinch my line.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pothecary.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to propose that this is an excellent college, an excellent school, and if they feel they need it, I'm very happy to support it.
I think that exactly expresses all of our views, and it is an excellent school college, isn't it? And very much appreciated in North Dorset. Nobody else is indicating that they wish to speak. I have had a proposal from Councillor Fry, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Taylor, who seconded it?
Taylor.
Councillor Taylor seconded it. I'm now going to put it straight to the vote, ladies and gentlemen, if you're ready. So this is to grant planning permission, subject conditions unamended. Councillor Andrews.
4.
Councillor Cook.
4.
Councillor Fry.
4.
Councillor Hall.
4.
Councillor Jones.
4.
Councillor Penfold.
4.
Councillor Pipe.
4.
Councillor Apothecary.
4.
Councillor Rideout.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4, Chair.
Good, excellent. Well, that's very firmly carried. Thank you very much. Agenda item 8, you'll be pleased to know that there is no urgent business.
Excellent.
Before I close the meeting, I do have to say a very big thank you to all of you. This has been a long day, a very hot day, and I think you've all worked very hard in drilling down into some of the detail of some of these applications, and as a result you've made some very thorough, robust decisions. So thank you very much. Particularly, I think you would want me to thank the officers for the enormous amount of work that they've put into today's meeting. We do appreciate it. We do know that the work that you do is much more than just what we see here on the day. And these reports, as always, have been really excellent and have made our deliberations very much easier. So thank you very much indeed to the officers and to the Democratic Services staff who make it all happen. So with that, I will close the meeting, ladies and gentlemen, at 15:51. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Chairman.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.